Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Curating Curious Curiosities. My name's Camel, and in this video today I'm going to curate to you the curious curiosities of Skyrim's Whiterun region. So sit back, relax, and take in the vast plethora of curious curiosities found in the region of Whiterun. Whiterun is the largest of all of the 9 holds in Skyrim. It also borders 6 of the other 8 holds, all but Winterhold and Harfingar. Whiterun is mostly covered in tundra and bordered by 2 major rivers, the White River to the south and the River Hjal to the north, which makes the land fertile and well suited to farming. And for the first curious curiosity, we have the Shrine of Akatosh of Rorikstead. This can be found just to the north of Rorikstead. Here on this beautiful overlook that overlooks Rorikstead, we can find a small section of an ancient Nordic rune, and there we can also find a shrine to Akatosh, beautifully placed and out of the way with candles eternally lit. Here we will find the book Klob and the Dragon, a blue dartwing, and very interestingly, dragon scales. No matter what level, the dragon scales will be present. Someone has placed these very important offerings to Akatosh atop this beautiful shrine overlooking the quiet town of Rorikstead. For the next curiosity, we have the out-of-date Alchemist. The Alchemist can be found to the east of Talking Stone Camp. We will find a very beautiful sight of a very secluded and tranquil waterfall. But if we take a closer look, we will find the out-of-date Alchemist lying on a rock in the middle of the pool at the base of the waterfall. What happened to this Alchemist? I'm not sure. There is a giant's camp quite close by. Although how he found himself on top of a rock like this, it makes me think he may have been dropped by a dragon. It's a very strange and specific place to die. And for the next curiosity, we have the Watery stash. If we head towards the Talking Stone camp, we will find this gorgeous little waterfall in a tiny cave underneath the giant's camp. But at a closer inspection, we will find a chest, an imperial helmet, and a coin sack hidden under the water. Have the giants stored this here? Or perhaps there was a rogue imperial that placed these here? For the next curiosity, we have a meal for a mudcrab, which can be found to the northeast of Swindler's Den. On this tiny island found at the fork of a river, we can find an island with 3 or 4 mudcrabs, but at a closer inspection we will find a skull and a leveled helmet. Also on top of the iron ore deposit, we will find a human spine, which makes me think whoever came to this island should have backed up instead. But it is not at the top of my list of ways to die, being eaten alive by mudcrabs. And next up we have the Hunted Hunter, who can be found to the west of Drela's cottage. And here we will find the hunter who was hunted by the now hunter. Judging by this hunter's facial hair, it is best that he died. He will also be carrying the light armor skill book of the refugees. I suppose this is a lesson to always wear heavy armor, because his light armor didn't do shit for him. And for the next curiosity, we have the Ancient Memorial Mound. This can be found to the south of Greenspring Hollow, and here we will find this ancient cairn, which at the base of it has a large amount of red mountain flowers, and perhaps by this point some of you are seeing what else is here. If we take a look at the base of the cairn and amongst the red mountain flowers, we will find an iron helmet. This to me is quite curious and does imply that an ancient hero was buried here, and in memory of him and to mark the location the helmet was placed. Who it was, how they died, and who placed the helmet there will always be unknown. But your interesting theories will always lighten the mystery. For the next curiosity, we have the Strong Grip for the Strong Box. This can be found to the northwest of Fort Greymoor, up in the mountains here. And as we approach, we will see a skeleton clutching a strong box, and the pesky sabertooth that probably caused this whole event to happen. This strong box contains a garnet and a leveled ring, which makes me think that whoever was carrying this strong box or found this strong box so dear to them that they clutched it in their arms at the doors of death makes me think that it was either a wealthy lady or a thief, both of which find gems and rings quite close to their hearts, which funnily enough, by the time they died, the strong box was probably closer to their heart than their heart was to them, literally. And for the next curiosity, we have the Twin Pillars of Stendarr, which can be found at the base of this mountain just to the south of Swindler's Den. And here we will find what I find to be a gorgeous curiosity. We have a relatively intact ancient building with 2 pillars and 2 braziers, and amidst them on a plinth we will find a strong box, a goblet, a gem, some alchemical ingredients, the enchanting skill book Twin Secrets, which, strangely enough, is at the twin pillars. Perhaps these twin pillars are the twin secrets. And of course, the shrine to Stendarr. So an interesting range and a very valuable range of offerings to Stendarr here. It's very out in the open, yet very far away from civilization. It makes me think that perhaps the giants placed these offerings here. For the next curiosity, we have the Shrine of Zenithar amongst the Ring of Boulders, which can be found to the west of Swindler's Den. And here we will find what can only be assumed to be an ancient fortress, with the Shrine of Zenithar at the top of the stairs amongst a ring of boulders. I don't know who else but the giants would be placing these shrines here, although at a close inspection of the shrine we can find a quill, a roll of paper, 4 coins and a coin purse, which, to be honest, I don't associate with giants at all, and makes me think that perhaps one of the bards from the Bard's College came down here and placed these offerings. I suppose we'll never be certain, but it certainly does make more sense than a giant placing these here. And next up we have the Fetid Pond, which can be found to the southwest of Swindler's Den. On approach we will soon discover that there is a pond, but on an even further approach we will soon discover why it is called the Fetid Pond. There is nothing more or less than a nernroot in a fetid corpse, and a saber cat. It's quite obvious that this saber cat buzzed this bandit. When I say buzzed, I mean owned, not the other meaning of buzzed. Although perhaps that did happen as well. I think I can see a smile on the bandit's face. This bandit will be carrying the pickpocket skill book Beggar, and I bet this bandit turned into a beggar when the saber cat was ripping his throat out, begging him for a strepsil. And moving on to the next curiosity, we have Zenithar's Crumbling Bastion, which can be found in this crumbling ancient fortress, which is to the north of Broken Fang Cave. Here, amidst the ruins, we will find another shrine to Zenithar. Someone is certainly frothing the Zenithar out here in the plains of Whiterun. We will also find 2 silver ingots and tongs, an apothecary's satchel, and the speech skill book 2920 Second Seed, Volume 5, which is quite interesting that it is a speech skill book that is found at this second shrine of Zenithar. And if you remember, at the last shrine of Zenithar we found a quill and some paper, and I mused that it could have been one of the bards from the Bard's College that left the quill and paper there. Well, to me this certainly backs up the fact that it could be a bard leaving these offerings, as it is a speech skill book. How curious. And next up we have the fossilized giant mudcrab, which can be found to the south of Gjukar's monument. Here we will find a small pool filled with mudcrabs, but most interestingly and most curiously, we will find a giant fossilized mudcrab. Now you will notice that the giant fossilized mudcrab has the same body shape as the smaller mudcrabs. This got me thinking that perhaps the different mudcrab sizes are different sexes. The big ones with the pointy tops could be males, and the smaller flat-topped ones could be females, or it could be the other way round. But this makes me think that because the giant mudcrab has the same body as the smaller mudcrabs, it was the same sex, so it could have been a king or a queen of the crabs. Do I think that this giant crab is in fact an emperor crab? Well, the answer to that is no. Although this crab is much larger than an average mud crab, an emperor crab is 1,000 times the size of this giant crab. So an emperor crab? I think not. Now there is some other history to this area. If we have a look here, there are some human remains, and up the hill a tad there is again some more human remains. And in the cave just above the pond we can find a sword, a shield, and a bloody human hand, which would suggest that human flesh is a delicacy amongst mudcrabs, and that these mudcrabs have been feasting on human flesh for many years. And for the next curiosity, we have one very curious curiosity, Moby the Mammoth. Moby the Mammoth can be found to the north of Sleeping Tree Camp at the base of the mountain here, where my character is. And here we will find the skeleton of Moby the Mammoth. And Moby the Mammoth is one of the only complete skeletons of a mammoth. You usually find the skull or the body. Very rarely do you find the skull and the body together. Now, why is Moby the Mammoth called Moby the Mammoth? If we think of Moby Dick, what what did Moby Dick do? He ate humans, and if we pan across Moby the Mammoth's skeleton, we will find a human skeleton inside Moby the Mammoth. This would imply that Moby the Mammoth in fact ate a human, or an elf, it could be an elf. Who this skeleton belonged to and why Moby the Mammoth ate this person is a very curious question. Perhaps Moby the Mammoth belonged to a giant, although Moby the Mammoth does not have the giant engravings on its tusks, which would imply that it was a free-roaming mammoth and ate this humanoid at will. I think we can all agree that it is best that Moby the Mammoth is dead. And next, we have the puzzling pillar ruins, which can be found to the southeast of Sleeping Tree Camp. And here we will find a Nordic ruin. Unlike some of the other ruins we've seen in this video, this is an ancient Nordic ruin, which has the turning puzzle pillars that we can find in so many Nordic ruins. But traditionally, these turning pillars are found within dungeons, not outside. So that is most curious indeed. However, there is a trapdoor and a lever, which would imply, and truthfully imply, that we need to turn these pillars in a certain order to activate the lever. And this first pillar to the left here, we need it to be a whale facing the pillar. The middle pillar, we need it to be an eagle facing the lever. And the third pillar to the right here, we need it to be a snake facing the pillar. Once all three puzzle pillars have the correct face facing the lever, we can activate the lever, which will open this trapdoor here with a short staircase leading down to a skeleton. Inside the chest next to the skeleton, we can find the destruction skill book, a hypothetical treachery. Perhaps this skeleton was buried with its very dear treasure, which interestingly consisted of a destruction skill book, which would imply that this was perhaps a pyromancer so powerful that it needed to be locked in this complex puzzling ruin. And next up we have the Necromancer's Bluff, which can be found to the east of Sleeping Tree Camp. And here we will find a rather interesting sight. Two dead conjurers, accompanied by two skeletons at the altar. It's very interesting considering they are dead conjurers and not dead necromancers, although they are wearing necromancer's robes. And further down the ruin, we can find a third skeleton standing alert. Interestingly, we have three skeletons, and if we take a look on the ground here, we have three graves. This, to me, makes it quite obvious that these conjurers, who perhaps wanted to turn necromancers, summoned, resurrected these three corpses or skeletons from these graves here at this ancient Nordic ruin. And I suppose these conjurers, or novice necromancers, as they never became to be, got what was coming to them. They were slaughtered on sight by the very skeletons that they had summoned and resurrected from the dead. And on the body of the novice conjurer that has been dramatically laid over the altar, we can find the conjuration skill book, Liminal Bridges. Now remember, we had three graves and three skeletons, but curiously, we have a fourth skeleton lying in the bushes just behind the altar. Now this fourth skeleton could be an ill thought out, poorly placed skeleton, or it could be a mystery melding manifestation of a developer's mind, conjuring curiosities from people like you and I, making us question what actually happened here and if there is a much deeper story. For the next curiosity, we have the Bloodied box, and no, not your girlfriend every month. The Bloodied box can be found to the north of Brittleshin Pass, and here we will find a rather closely bound group of dead trees, and the Bloodied box is amidst the grasp of the gnarled tree roots. It's quite a curious find, as we can see that there is lots of blood, and not only is it a skeletal arm and hand that remains reaching for the strong box, but it is a skeletal hand and arm covered in blood. To me, personally, this implies that whoever was reaching for the strongbox was dragged away by a creature of the tundra of Whiterun, say a saber cat or seldom a bear. The contents of this box contain level gems, an amethyst and a flawless garnet. Hopefully the owner of this strongbox and the gems is living peacefully in Sovngarde. Now this next curiosity is a rather long and complex curiosity. We need to head to Lund's hut, which is northwest of Rorikstead. Here we will find Lund's hut, and instantly we can see that all of the outside of the hut is covered with skeevers. And just downhill a tiny bit from Lund's hut, we can find this cairn which has some lit candles, a basket of apples. There is also a blue mountain flower, a silver ring, and a cap. But we will come back to that later because it gets very curious. So, for now, let's head inside Lund's hut. Inside, we will find live skeevers, which I have killed. We will also find the dead body of Lund. What killed Lund? Obviously, it was the skeevers. However, if we take a look around Lund's hut, we will find plates and bowls covered with meat. These would resemble bowls for your pet bowls. So, this would imply that Lund was keeping these skeevers as pets. All throughout the shack, we can find empty wine bottles, and on the table, we can find a bottle of poison. This would imply that, in fact, Lund had killed himself. Now back to this little homemade shrine outside. So we have the apples, a silver ring, a blue mountain flower, and the cap. This to me implies that Lund had a loss in his life, supposedly a wife, and then he turned into a crazy cat lady, but in this time it was a crazy skeever man, and then ended up killing himself. Now you may have already noticed the most curious curiosity. When we first rocked up to Lund's hut, there was a hat on this cairn, on this pile of rocks outside. Once we head inside and kill the skeevers, and kill the skeevers outside as well, we come back to the cairn, and the hat is gone. I checked multiple times across multiple characters, I clipped through the rocks, and I looked all around the landscape around it. The hat has not fallen anywhere. The hat has vanished. The hat, which supposedly belonged to his deceased wife, has vanished. After you kill the skeevers, the hat vanishes. Was this a glitch? Was this a coincidence? Or was this a curiosity? Very, very strange. I can feel spirits are at Rye here. And for the next curiosity, we have the Smuggler's Den, which can be found underneath a ledge just outside Whiterun. Here, we will find a rather well-established Smuggler's Den, complete with a table, a fire, a horse, a cart, and a whole bunch of other shit. And the Smuggler's Den is populated with 2 bandits. However, there is a darker truth to this: they are skooma addicts. And on top of a cupboard inside the Smuggler's Den, we can find the pickpocketing skill book, a Var Stone Singer. Perhaps these skooma addicts are better off dead, although someone will need to take their horse. Next up we have Talos by the river, which can be found just southeast of Shimmermist Cave. Here we will find a shrine to Talos underneath a ledge in the mountainside. After the Thalmor scum invaded Skyrim, they banned Talos, so shrines to Talos have to be mostly hidden in niche pockets only found by various explorers and those who know where the shrines are. This shrine is, of course, one of those. A beautiful, well-candlelit shrine. And next up we have the Fallen Tree Bridge, which can be found south of the Hilgrund's tomb. And we will see a beautiful sight after we come over this waterfall, which is the Tree Bridge. It is a fallen tree that is now serving as a bridge to this bandit. It is truly a beautiful sight. Although as beautiful as it is, there are some darker truths. Here we'll find a chest with a coin sack. We can also find a dead bandit on the ledge. And if we have a look underneath the tree bridge itself, underneath the bandit that's standing on the tree bridge, down in the whirlpool at the base of the waterfall, we will find a dead bandit. And he is carrying a coin purse, and right next to him is a necklace, an amulet, a locket. And going back to the chest, next to the tree stump, we can find the illusion skillbook, The Black Arts on Trial. I'm not sure what relevance this illusion skillbook has, but the bandit guarding the bridge and the other 2 dead bandits does make me think that the bandit that has survived killed the other 2 bandits. How this illusion skillbook intertwines or interweaves into that theory, I am not sure. And next up we have the Ruined Toll and the Wisp Mother's Well, which can be found to the northeast of Pine Peak Cavern. And here we will find a rather tranquil sight, a well atop a hill, and an old ruin. And this ruin once served as an imperial toll. Now upon your first arrival here, there will be 3 wisps awaiting you. These will be neutral wisps, however they will not attack you until you are spotted by the Wisp Mother, who will cause a ruckus, shoot out of this well here, and then you have a fight fate on your hands. Whether the wisps are spirits or somehow cause this toll to turn into a ruin instead of a fully functioning toll, I cannot say. However, if we take a look in between these two walls here, within the ruin, we can find a basket with the Conjuration skill book, the Warrior's Charge, on top of it. Now, if we move this pesky and useless basket, we will find a strong box hidden underneath the basket. Inside this strong box, we can find one garnet. How long this has been here, or who put it there, is up to interpretation. Perhaps some kind of ill concoction of Conjuration skill books, lockboxes, Imperial Tolls, Wisps and Wisp Mothers, and Garnets led this Imperial Toll to become what it is now, an Imperial Ruin. And next up we have the Frozen Bones Curiosity, which can be found halfway towards the Throat of the World and southeast of the Throat of the World. And here on the path we will find a skeleton buried under rocks and snow. Whether this was a hero or an adventurer, or even a greybeard heading up to the Throat of the World, I cannot say, although the skeleton does have a shield next to it which would imply that it was not a greybeard. Whether it died from a dragon, a troll, an avalanche, or purely the cold, these ancient bones will never tell the truth. And for the next curiosity, we have Curious Cutlery, which can be found to the southeast of High Hrothgar. Here we will find a bridge that bridges across a canyon or a gorge. This is on the way to the Throat of the World. However, if we ourselves dive down into this gorge or canyon, if we head down and down, right near the bottom where these trees are, we will find a rock, and on top of this rock is a knife and a fork. It's a bit strange. It's a strange place to eat with a knife and a fork. Is there something more to this knife and fork? Yes. Now, you cannot interact with this knife and fork, so what you need to do is disrupt them. Shout at them. Once you have disrupted them, you can pick them up. I would suggest saving your game before trying this because they can fly in any direction and sometimes even go through the rocks. But once we look in our inventory in the weapons, we will have a fork and a knife. Very curious indeed. This is some curious cutlery. And you can equip the knife and fork and use them as weapons. Very, very curious indeed. Who put these here? Why they're there? I mean, the possibilities are endless. For the next curiosity, we have the Lost Box, which can be found to the north of Whiterun. Here we will find on a hill a rather dilapidated and ruined ruin. Judging by the markings and the textures on these stones, I would say that it is an ancient Nordic ruin. However, in the middle of these ancient Nordic ruins, if we take a close inspection, we will find a strongbox. Do I think that this is part of the Nordic ruin? No. I personally think that this strongbox was placed here well after this ruin was in functioning form. Perhaps this is a drop-off point, or perhaps a thief or a bandit put it here for safekeeping. However, being placed directly in the middle of these ancient Nordic ruins does give it a more poetic essence. Inside this lockbox we can find a garnet. I hope whoever places here was not expecting to get their garnet back. And for the next curiosity, we have the Dragon Drop Guard, which can be found just underneath Dragon's Reach outside Whiterun. And here we will find a guard that has been dropped or has fallen. Perhaps they were pushed from Dragon's Reach and they have hit this rock bed below, and as you can see, there is blood splattered everywhere. Perhaps it was a suicide or perhaps it was a betrayal. I don't know which is darker. And next up we have the Ancient Treasure of Dragon's Reach, which can be found just to the northeast of Dragon's Reach. And here we will find two ancient Nordic pillars, or perhaps they are more recent than ancient Nordic, I'm not too sure. Slightly down the slope from the pillars we will find a chest. Perhaps there used to be another entrance up to Dragon's Reach where these two pillars now stand. Perhaps there was a secret tunnel that acted as a secret escape or a secret entrance into and out of Dragon's Reach. Bandits could have used this passage to take this treasure out and place the chest here. I can't say for certain who places here or why it's here, but we can let our imaginations run wild. And penultimately we have the Swimming Skeleton. Now I'm sure we're all familiar with Dragon's Reach and this bridge leading to the doors of Dragon's Reach. If we just have a little peek underneath the bridge, we will find the Swimming Skeleton. Why this skeleton is here or who it was, I don't know. Perhaps it was a betrayal late in the night and they slid the body under the bridge. Or perhaps it was a form of ancient punishment of drowning. There are various reasonable explanations for this skeleton. It is still quite strange that it has not yet been removed. Perhaps it is still unnoticed. And penultimately we have the Thieves' Luck. And if we walk straight through the doors of Whiterun, as soon as we come through, there's this stone bridge here. But has anyone taken the time to look underneath the bridge? Underneath the bridge here, we will find the Thieves Guild shadow mark for safe, which means that this area is a safe place to hide from guards. But judging by the huge blood splatter on the wall, I would guess that it was not a safe place to hide from guards. On the walls and the edge of the bridge, there is also blood splattered everywhere. Whether this was a mishap or perhaps the guards placed that symbol there just to trick thieves, I'm not sure, but I am sure glad that I was not that thief. And penultimately we have the White River water loot, which can be found in the White River just to the east of Dragon's Reach. And here we will find a small arm of land that is sticking out into the White River. There are a couple of plants, some insects, a rock, and a couple of washed up old logs. But if we look closely amongst the logs, we will find a chest, a half-buried chest. Given the location of this chest, I would say that this chest was in fact washed downstream and has been buried over time. In terms of bandits, it is a poor location choice and an awful burying job that they did if this was placed here by bandits. It is quite an interesting find in such a beautiful location. It's not the worst place to be washed up. And penultimately we have, well, I'll let you try and figure out what this is, but it can be found just to the east of Whitewatch Tower. And here we will find a very curious sight indeed. I'm sure a lot of people would overlook this instantly, but something about this caught my eye. At first glance, it's 4 random rocks, but with a closer look, you will see they are 4 similarly sized rocks, all standing up long ways. That's a little bit weird. If we look very closely at the rocks, we can find that there's no symbols, no special markings, nothing that would imply that these rocks have any purpose or meaning. Has anyone figured out what these rocks are yet? No, how curious. Well, I'm going to stand my character in the middle of the 4 rocks. And if you look up the top, I've turned the compass on, and this rock's pointing east. This rock is pointing north. This rock is pointing west. And this final rock is pointing south. And back to the rock that is pointing east. How very, very curious that is. It's an ancient compass. Whether this was placed here by giants or some of the first men, the ancient Nords, or perhaps a more modern group of people placed these rocks here. I'm not sure, but it is certainly a very primitive form of compass. I definitely don't think it was the Dwemer. They had very, very advanced technology. This is a very primitive form, which would make me think it had something to do with the giants, although these rocks are small enough that they could be moved by a group of men. But it is a gorgeous thing to see, such an ancient and practical curiosity. And ultimately we have Candle Crush Rock. Now this place has a cauldron of curiosities. And Candle Crush Rock can be found to the northeast of Hilgrund's tomb. So here, at first sight, it looks like a standard giant's camp. Just a giant standing around scratching his back. However, if we take a close look at this fire here, there is a cow on top of it, and it has been painted with the tribal markings of the giants. As far as I am aware, this is the only cow in Skyrim that has had these tribal markings painted on it, which is quite a cool, artsy, and curious sight. Underneath the giant, there is a dead alchemist that I assume has been clubbed to death by this giant. If we take a very close look at the side of the fire here, we will see some leeks, potatoes, and some cheese. However, the cheese on the right is the largest wheel of cheese in Skyrim. A giant-sized piece of cheese, if you will. I do believe its scale number has been doubled compared to the normal wheel of cheese. I'm trying to think of more puns, but sometimes they can be a bit cheesy. So the painted cow, the dead alchemist, and the giant cheese wheel, how can this get more curious? This rock is the answer to how it can get more curious. Upon a close inspection of the rock, we will find a skeleton buried underneath the rock with a knapsack next to him or her. In the middle, we'll find another skeleton doing the Superman with a leveled helmet and a lantern splattered under the rock. And thirdly, we will find another skeleton. Interestingly though, this third skeleton, on the hand that is sticking out from underneath the rock, we can find a silver garnet ring on the middle finger, which this skeleton will not be needing anymore. How strange, how did these 3 people get underneath this rock? It's almost as if the rock was thrown or launched by something. Although there is a giant nearby, this rock is, in my opinion, far, far too big for a giant to throw. It would be the equivalent of an average man throwing a 4x4 pickup truck. It's just not possible. And if we have a look at the trees around the rock, we will see that they have been hit by the rock as well. So this rock was definitely launched. However, there's no cliffs or not enough hill for this rock to have come rolling down and crushed them from the direction it has. So who or what threw, dropped, or launched this rock at these 3 adventurers? Interestingly, the lantern still throws light, as is made quite apparent when we come back at nighttime. This lantern with no candle in it is still throwing light. Very strange, as there are plenty of lanterns with no candles that don't throw light. Don't forget to keep in mind that this giant's camp is called Candle Crush Rock, and this is a rock that has crushed, and there is the byproduct of a candle present. So I think you will agree that this crushing rock is quite a curiosity, although the question does remain, who or what threw this? As mentioned before, it hasn't rolled or fallen from a cliff or a hill, and in my opinion, that giant most certainly cannot throw a rock that size. How ever so curious. And there you have it. I do hope that you enjoyed this episode of Curating Curious Curiosities, where I curated to you the curious curiosities of Skyrim's Whiterun region. If you would like to see more of the Curating Curious Curiosities series, feel free to click on one of the links on screen. If that doesn't quite quench your Skyrim thirst, be sure to check out my good friends Michael and Scott over at Fudge Muppet. I will leave the link to their awesome and very interesting channel in the description. Margarita. If you did enjoy this video, please leave a like. Don't forget to share this video amongst your family and friends. Let me know in the comments all of your crazy theories, ideas, and backstories for the curious curiosities that I curated to you in this video. A lot of these ones were very open-ended and ancient, and left a whole lot of explaining to do. That's where you guys come in. And if you would like to see more of these Curating Curious Curiosities videos, or more Curating Curious Curiosities series, please subscribe. It helps me know that people are interested in these kind of videos, and in the long run will result in more of these CCC videos. On the subject of more CCC videos, if you think that you have found any curiosities in Skyrim, Oblivion, Morrowind, Fallout New Vegas, Fallout 3, or any of the Fallout or Elder Scrolls games, please let me know in the comments. The sooner you let me know, the sooner I read it, and the sooner I can cover these curiosities. That would be an excellent help. So, thank you very much for watching. Be sure to check out Fudge Muppet, links in the description. And of course, let your curiosity get the better of you and click on one of the links on screen. And I'll see you in a couple of seconds in the next video. See you there.